It simply creates habits. It causes us to descend or hide ourselves behind a single attitude and remain behind it as an economic factor as long as we live. Actually, however, the consciousness within ourselves is in demand of constant leadership. We have to learn how to rule ourselves. And the man who rules himself is greater than the one that taketh the city, according to the Scriptures. Zen, however, is not one of these punishing things. Of course, the Zen monk, under discipline, is provided with intensive opportunities for self-discipline. If he doesn't accept them, he probably will be rejected from the order. But the primary purpose for the layman, the individual who is not actually a member of the Zen community, is to take those parts of the doctrine most useful to himself and apply them to his own immediate needs. The first thing he must do is place a watchfulness upon himself. He must become increasingly aware of his own conduct. It is not that he should become bound to constant personal criticism or analysis, but that he must, in a reasonably relaxed state, observe what he does, how he does it, why he does it, and the consequences. Now, this type of thinking is not very common these days. We live by impulse, which is an explosion or loss of energy. We live with regrets, more energy wasted. We become angry, that is practically nuclear fission. In all these different things, we are constantly misusing the most important thing we own or possess, and that is energy. That is the life within us, which will unfold and evolve with us through all eternity. It is the reason that we are alive. We are a mysterious center of energy surrounded by manifestations of itself. These manifestations go into every function of our structure and body. These manifestations include bones, nerves, muscles, glands, and all the different divisions of our physical structure. This energy division also includes our thoughts, our feelings, our beliefs, our doctrines, our hopes, our fears, our worries, our agitations, our happiness, and our misery. All of these represent expenditures of energy. And we are told now, and probably it is true, that the world at this time is short in energy. This shortness of energy, the supply is not adequate. This shortness of energy is present in each of us. People are not as happy as they used to be. They are not as reliant. They are not as thoughtful. They are not as dedicated to principles. The average person today is wandering around, mostly wasting energy. One of the fine ways of wasting it today is to devote it to television programs. If you watch those long enough, you can suffer from complete exhaustion. And don't forget the energy necessary to produce those programs. Calling upon resources in short supply, we use what there is wastefully. We make no effort to try to find a legitimate value in what we do. Most of our time, we are perhaps wasting energy by being sorry for ourselves. Another type of waste is to constantly worry about the world. We do all kinds of things in which we use up energy, fully aware of the fact that the use is going to be non-productive. We can get annoyed at anyone we wish to be annoyed with, but in the end, we have simply wasted more energy. Revenge is a total loss. Anxiety, not much better. All of these different ways in which we waste or use or expend energy have a tremendous effect upon ourselves. In the human being, almost all energy waste is also involved in destruction of tissue and fabric. Wasted energy is depleting the resources of the body to recuperate from disease or to continue the process of growth and repair necessary to its survival. The moment we waste energy, we endanger the one commodity upon which we depend for everything. Therefore, in Zen, we are taught, as best as we can be taught, to conserve energy, to prevent ourselves from any willful waste, to prevent ourselves from any extraordinary attitude which is going to bring a negative reaction. The moment we overuse energy, we get a reaction. We find a deficit taking the place of the exhaustion. We find ourselves more tired, less able to carry on the constructive works of life, less patient, and gradually less functional in our daily habits. Therefore, every waste is resulting in a deprivation. We are in some way being penalized for the misuse of the powers at our disposal. Then now it comes into the matter as a philosophy of life. It is based upon a series of attitudes. Zen does not take the Pollyanna attitude that everything is wonderful. It takes a very simple attitude. Everything is as it is. Everything is real, and reality has a reason. In fact, reality is the prime which we are all working with. When we keep peace and keep faith with reality, we have very few problems. But when we break faith with reality, we begin the disintegration of our entire compound. We will never be as good again as we were before we exhausted our energy resources. To try to meet this exhaustion, we take all kinds of pills, vitamins, etc. We go to nutritionists to find ways of building up energy. But the first and important factor in building up energy is to keep the energy that we already have, to use it usefully and constructively. If we are very deeply involved in a worthy cause, and we find that we are not able to carry on as well as we used to, there might be a cause for energy supply in terms of nutrition, in terms of better habits of living. We can take the necessary vitamins and minerals to build up energy that is lost through legitimate activity. If, however, we are wasting all we have, get more pills so we can waste those also, we are not gaining much. We will never really gain until nature and nature's ways are honored, are given precedence over every attitude of our own life. In religion, we get letters quite frequently from people who are confused or disturbed by religious associations of one kind or another. They say that so many people who claim religion and really believe in it never practice it. They are actually constantly speaking about brotherhood, but they do not create brotherhood in their environment. They are told that to be merciful, but they are still critical. We are told to love the stranger, so we can't even love our families. Most people keep all the virtues for themselves alone. They love themselves. This, however, is of very little social value. It's much better, therefore, to realize the importance of a doctrine that is not valuable because of its name or because of any of the exercises associated with it. The value lies in the individual taking the disciplines necessary to reform his own nature and qualify himself for a better level of energy and a better destiny in this world and the worlds to come. So as we watch this tremendous demand on energy, more electricity than ever before, and we find all the natural resources of society gradually diminishing, we have a very sad thought somewhere in the back of our minds. What is going to happen when the coal is all gone? What is going to happen when we run out of petroleum? What are we going to do when the various resources of energy which we now have are not only overtaxed beyond the possibility of meeting the demands, or that even the amounts that we have now will gradually fade away? How are we going to get along, for instance, when we have no way of maintaining this intricate culture that we have built upon a tremendous internetwork of energies? Well, some of the scientific people are hoping that by that time we will be able to tune in on nuclear energy, that the only source left to us is the source of universal life itself. Here, however, we have as yet come a very short distance, but we have already learned that we are now fooling with something that is extremely dangerous. We want the energy. We are dying to keep up all of these things that we have. But if we keep them up the way we're going now, we're going to die from the consequence of keeping them up. We are going to be in a very desperate situation because we are not going to be able to handle a higher degree of energy unless we raise our own level of integrities. We are no longer dealing with materials that we can buy and sell. We are dealing with a universal power that extends beyond space and time, that runs and works according to laws inherent in itself, and there will never be a way in which the human being can alter those laws. He must gradually learn to abide by them and reconcile his own conduct to the requirements of infinite energy. This is going to be quite a little job for him. So he must begin to prepare for it. There is a tendency now for fear to come in and make us a little more cautious. We are discovering a little more every day the danger of our own mistakes. We are realizing that we cannot go on being foolish, even vicious, without ultimately getting into difficulties. Somewhere in the ancient background of things, commandments were given to us by sages or saints, or some believe by the finger of God upon the crest of Sinai. We were given ways of life, commandments. We were given lessons, morals, fables, parables, to help us to find out what the divine plan for man really means. Now, many may say that there is no proof that these are divine revelations. Now, maybe there is not any actual proof, but there is another kind of proof, and that is the disaster that occurs when we break them. It is not necessary for us to find out who made them. The only thing that is necessary to find out is how we can keep them, and by so doing, to protect ourselves over the long range of the future. It might be interesting to realize that a possible source of energy that we have neglected is the energy resource within ourselves. There's probably enough energy in each human being, if improperly used, to blow the planet out of its orbit. But there is also enough energy in the human being to make it possible for him to gradually and methodically take over the complete direction of his own existence. He can meet all the needs that can arise, because these needs are satisfied by resources within himself. And when these emergencies arise, which he must face, the resources come forth to meet them. But the resources can't do anything unless the individual takes a kind of voluntary pledge to keep the rules. We are now greatly burdened by man-made rules, by laws, most of which are inadequate. We are burdened by a complex structure of legislations, of values, of standards, of ethical confusions, which we do not really know what to do about. There is no solution in trying to keep all of these rules without knowing why they're there or what they're about. We can be law-abiding forever and still die young. There's more to it than this. And the thing that is more to it is the realization that all these laws are related to the rules governing our own lives. That we must begin to think in terms of keeping faith with realities. We can no longer live in a kind of fool's paradise. We can no longer say we each of us entitled to complete independence. We must no longer think in terms of how much liberty we can gain or how much authority we can destroy. The problem is to realize that we must transfer our allegiance from the insubstantial substance of physical policy and restore it to where it belongs, the infinite rule of a divine plan working in nature. If we can keep the rules of the divine plan, the rest will take care of itself. If we break these rules, no amount of legislation can give us survival. We will perish because we break the rules of life. And these rules of life are the guides